So this is our Dodge Cummins 4-wheel drive conversion project. Came with a 318. It's a crew cab long box dually 2-wheel drive. We are going to make it a 4-wheel drive with a Cummins and a NV4500 behind it. So what we're going to do is take the whole front half off the truck, leaving only the frame sticking out. Then we're going to take another frame that use it as a template, drill all new holes in the frame, and put the 4-wheel drive axle instead of the coilovers. We're going to go with leaf spring. The coilovers being here. With the 318 for now, I checked the wiring before we're getting into this project. The truck's not running. I noticed that the lights aren't working, the wipers aren't working, the turn signals aren't working, and something else isn't working. So there's not really much point in trying to figure out everybody else's mistakes. We're going to take the plug off the truck and pretty much start over again. So that's our little project now. We'll come back to it when the front end's off. As you can see, we pulled the front axle out. Still got to cut these brackets off. This is going to be our donor truck. This was the original project until he found this truck. I wasn't too thrilled about working on that truck, but it's a Southern truck. Thanks States for not using salt. It's in really good shape, so it's not bad to work on. So what this was a regular cab long box 2-wheel drive, or sorry, 4-wheel drive dually. With a Cummins in it. So we're taking this Cummins, putting it in that truck. Last year I redid all the gaskets on it, low mileage engine, so I didn't rebuild it. NV4500 behind it with a Dodge transfer case, new rad. So what we're gonna have to do is take these brackets that has the springs for the front. We're gonna see if the bolts, if the holes are there. If not, we're gonna make a template that has the same holes in place. And then we'll drill the hole so it's the exact spot, front and back, move all the steering linkages over, and then he'll have to do an alignment afterwards. So we're working on our Dodge. We've got the engine pulled out. We're going to start pulling this whole frame assembly off. We're going to cut the frame here. This frame is pretty well useless after we pull this front axle. A frame without an axle is no good, so we need a template. The holes are roughly in the same spot, but they're just enough of a difference that our brackets aren't going to line up. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the frames back right in front of the mount. We're going to grind all the rivets off. Then we're going to cut the frame lip off, and we're going to C-clamp this frame to the side of that frame, and then we have a template to put all the holes back in the right spot. In doing that, we have to pull this steering motor off. Unfortunately, we can't get a wrench in there. It's pretty tight. I could cut the bracket, but we'll leave that alone just in case we need it. I don't know if we need it or not, so if you do wreck it, then you're in trouble afterwards. So we're just going to customize this wrench the Boss way. Now these cheap wrenches are perfect at Canadian Tire when they come on sale or on Christmas, wherever. You don't want to cut up your good wrenches, but you have some that you can torch, you can cut. Give her a go here, see if she fits. And now you got lots of room to stick the wrench in the side. Would help if I grabbed the right size wrench. A handy little trick for when you're trying to separate steering parts. You can use forks to go in there, but you'll generally wreck the rubber. Sometimes you get away with it by just putting a bar in there and then leaning on it. What you want to do is take your nut and loosen it, but leave it on otherwise your chin's gonna hit the floor. So lean on it as best as you can, and you wanna hit it right, right on the side, and the vibration will knock it loose. There we go. Now you can just take the nut off. If the nut doesn't want to come off because the threads are rusty, what you want to do is just leave it so you can still spin it by hand, and otherwise the ball joint will spin in between, and then just tap it loose. And reoccurring scabs come off really easy when you're banging with a hammer. So we've taken our template. Essentially all this is the inside frame of our old 4x4. What we've done is we've bolted and C-clamped it just to mark out exactly where the holes are. What you're going to want to do is put a couple bolts in anyway to hold it tight and line up the holes, front and back, and then C-clamp it, then you know where to drill your holes. We've drilled the holes. Now we're going to start putting the front cross member, the engine support, and the tranny support back in, along with our shocks, mounts front and back to hold our leaf spring. Bolted back on again. We've got the front axle in. It was very difficult because this truck, I know the engine was tight in it, and they yanked it around the yard for a bit, and they bent this entire bracket into a giant V underneath, and that changed all the bolt holes, so we had to spend some time straightening this bracket, getting the holes to line up. We used 1/2-inch fine thread grade 8 bolts with lock nuts and lock washers and Loctite. Hopefully that keeps everything together. We threaded the holes that it went into, pulled it tight, torqued it, and then put the nut on and torqued it from the other side as well. We didn't do the tranny mount yet, only because we're going from a regular cab to a crew cab. I don't know the exact placement. We're going to put the engine in, we're going to boom that in, and then figure out where the mount goes and drill the holes from there. We'll probably have to pull the interior out, cut the hole for the transmission shifter, and then we'll move the pedals over and go from there. So long process, took a lot longer than we thought, but hopefully it's worth it when we're done. It's winter in Canada, it's -20 out, it's snowing, it's cold, so we used the crane inside, boomed it in, no problem, kind of put the front end together real quick. It fits. Luckily the 83 does have the hump in the firewall that makes room for the bell housing on the NV 4500. It sits nice in there. We did notice that with the four-wheel drive, the front end got lifted about 3 inches compared to the back, so we'll probably we'll just put a spacer block underneath the springs on the back, make the truck sit level. But it's in, we gotta hook everything up, and hope to fire up next week. So follow a variety of projects that include conversions and repairs to anything from Ferraris to chainsaws. And check out the Tape Boss, my newest invention that's coming to market. And remember, if you're not filthy, you're not rich.